Hello, my friend. I'm Evelyn, and I'm truly happy you're here today. Before we begin, I want to ask you one simple question. When you listen to English, do you understand more than you can actually speak? Think about that for a moment. Maybe you can understand English videos. Maybe you can read simple articles, messages, and conversations. Maybe you have studied grammar for months or even years. Maybe you know hundreds of useful words. But when someone suddenly asks you a question in English, your mind becomes busy. You know what you want to say, but the sentence does not come out quickly enough. Maybe you start translating from your own language. Maybe you worry about grammar. Maybe you search for the perfect word. Maybe you know the answer clearly in your mind. But your mouth feels slow, and sometimes before you finally create the sentence, the moment has already passed. If this happens to you, today's practice is exactly what you need. You see, knowing English and speaking English are not exactly the same skill. You can study English every day and still feel nervous when you speak. You can memorize vocabulary and still hesitate in conversation. You can understand a sentence perfectly when someone else says it, but struggle to produce that same sentence naturally by yourself. Why does this happen? Because speaking needs training, not only knowledge. Your brain needs practice finding English words quickly. Your ears need practice recognizing natural English rhythm. Your mouth needs practice producing English sounds smoothly. And most importantly, all three need to learn how to work together. That is exactly what we are going to train today. In this lesson, you will practice 400 useful English sentences from everyday life. The sentences will move from easier A2 level English toward more natural and confident B1 and B2 English. You will hear sentences about your morning routine, work, shopping, transportation, food, friends, family, feelings, plans, problems, travel, conversations, decisions, and many other situations you may experience in real life. Your job is very simple. Listen carefully and repeat after me. Do not only listen silently, speak out loud whenever possible. Try to follow my pronunciation, my rhythm, and the natural flow of each sentence. This method is called shadowing, and it is one of the most practical ways to train your spoken English. When you shadow English, you are not spending a long time thinking about grammar. You are training your mouth to follow natural English patterns. You hear a sentence, you understand the meaning, and then you say it again. Little by little, useful sentence patterns become more familiar. For example, if you hear me say, I usually leave home around 8 in the morning, do not only understand the sentence. Repeat it. I usually leave home around 8 in the morning. Again, I usually leave home around 8 in the morning. When you repeat complete sentences like this, your brain starts learning English in useful groups of words instead of isolated vocabulary. You are not only learning the word usually, you are learning the natural pattern. I usually leave home around 8 in the morning. Later, when you want to talk about your own routine, your brain can use that pattern more quickly. You might say, I usually wake up around 7, or I usually have lunch around noon, or I usually get home before 6. This is how speaking becomes faster. You hear patterns, you repeat patterns, and eventually, you begin using those patterns naturally. So today, please do not worry about being perfect. If your pronunciation is not perfect, keep going. If you miss a word, keep going. If a sentence feels difficult, listen again and repeat it slowly. Some sentences will feel very easy, and that is good. Easy sentences help you build speed and confidence. Other sentences may feel longer or more challenging, and that is also good. Those sentences will push your speaking ability a little further. As we continue, pay attention to more than individual words. Listen to how the sentence moves. Notice which words sound stronger. 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 English is not normally spoken one word at a time. Natural English flows. For example, listen to this sentence. What are you going to do after work? Now repeat. What are you going to do after work? Try not to separate every word too much. Let the sentence move naturally. What are you going to do after work? Very good. And remember, you do not have to memorize all 400 sentences today. That is not the goal. The goal is to train your speaking muscles, improve your listening, strengthen your pronunciation, and help useful English patterns become more automatic. Think about learning to drive a car. At first, you think about every small action. You think about your hands, your feet, the mirrors, the road, and everything around you. But after enough practice, many actions become automatic. Speaking English can develop in the same way. At first, you may think about every word. You may think, which tense should I use? Is this word correct? What comes next? But with enough speaking practice, common sentences begin to come more naturally. You stop building every sentence from zero. You begin speaking in patterns you have already heard and practiced many times. That is why repetition is so powerful. One sentence may seem small, but 400 useful sentences give your brain hundreds of opportunities to practice English word order, pronunciation, vocabulary, rhythm, grammar, and natural expression. And if you return to this practice again in the future, you may notice something interesting. Sentences that once felt difficult will begin to feel easier. Your mouth will move faster. Your hesitation will become shorter. You may even begin saying the sentence before you consciously think about every word. That is progress. So before we begin, make one small promise to yourself. Do not be a silent listener today. Become an active speaker. When I say a sentence, repeat it. If you can, say it clearly and confidently. You can practice quietly, or you can speak with a stronger voice. You can practice sitting at home, walking around your room, or listening with headphones. The important thing is that your mouth participates in the lesson, and if one sentence feels difficult, repeat it twice. If another sentence feels useful for your daily life, repeat it 3 times. You can even pause the lesson and practice a sentence until it feels comfortable. Remember, fluency is not created by rushing through hundreds of lessons. Fluency grows when useful English becomes familiar enough that you can use it without too much hesitation. So today, we are going to give your brain that familiarity. We will begin with simple, everyday sentences and gradually move toward more natural and flexible English. Some sentences will describe routines. Some will help you ask questions. Some will help you express opinions. Some will help you explain problems, make plans, talk about experiences, respond politely, and continue real conversations. By the end of this practice, you will have spoken hundreds of complete English sentences out loud. And that matters. Every sentence you repeat is speaking practice. Every sentence you say clearly is pronunciation practice. Every sentence you understand is listening practice. And every time you continue, even after making a mistake, you are building confidence. So do not wait until your English becomes perfect before you start speaking. Speak and allow your English to improve through practice. You do not need the perfect vocabulary. You do not need the perfect accent. You do not need to speak incredibly fast. You need consistency, repetition, and the courage to use the English you already know. So get comfortable, relax your shoulders, take a calm breath, and prepare to speak. Listen carefully to each sentence. Repeat after me, and try to copy the natural rhythm as closely as you can. 400 sentences, one sentence at a time, one repetition at a time, one small improvement at a time. Are you ready? Take one more breath, listen, repeat, and let's begin. I wake up at 7 every morning. I usually get out of bed right away. I open the curtains and let in some light. I drink a glass of water before breakfast. I brush my teeth and wash my face. I take a quick shower before getting dressed. I choose comfortable clothes for the day. I make my bed before leaving the room. I check the weather before I go outside. I try to start my morning calmly. I usually have eggs and toast for breakfast. I sometimes make coffee when I feel tired. I eat slowly when I have enough time. I pack a small snack for later. I always remember to take my phone. I keep my keys in the same place. I leave home a little before 8. I lock the door before I walk away. I usually take the bus to work. I listen to music during my morning commute. I arrive at work a few minutes early. I say good morning to my coworkers. I check my schedule before starting anything. I answer important messages first. I keep a bottle of water on my desk. I take short breaks when I need them. I try to finish one task at a time. I ask questions when something is unclear. I write down anything I might forget. I feel better when my desk is organized. I usually eat lunch around 12:30. I sometimes bring lunch from home. I enjoy having soup on cold days. I try not to eat too quickly. I often talk with coworkers during lunch. I like hearing about their weekend plans. I sometimes go outside for a short walk. Fresh air helps me feel more awake. I return to work after my break. I finish the most important tasks first. I usually leave work around 5. I check that I have everything with me. I walk to the bus stop after work. I sometimes stop at the grocery store. I buy vegetables, fruit, and a few snacks. I compare prices before choosing a product. I ask for help if I cannot find something. I wait patiently when the checkout line is long. I carry my groceries home in reusable bags. I feel relieved when I finally get home. I take off my shoes near the door. I change into something more comfortable. I put my phone on the charger. I wash my hands before preparing dinner. I usually cook something simple in the evening. I cut the vegetables into small pieces. I heat the pan before adding the food. I try to clean while I cook. I sit down and enjoy my dinner. I save the leftovers for tomorrow. I wash the dishes after I finish eating. I wipe the kitchen counter when it is dirty. I make a cup of tea in the evening. I call my family when I have time. I ask them how their day went. I listen carefully when someone is speaking. I try not to interrupt other people. I share a few things about my own day. I laugh when someone tells a funny story. I enjoy simple conversations with people I trust. I sometimes watch a short show after dinner. I choose something relaxing and easy to follow. I turn on subtitles when I need help. I write down useful English expressions. I repeat new phrases out loud. I try to copy the speaker's pronunciation. I practice the same sentence more than once. I notice which sounds are difficult for me. I slow down when I make too many mistakes. I keep practicing even when it feels difficult. I do not need to sound perfect. I only need to keep improving. Small practice sessions can make a big difference. I speak more easily when I stay relaxed. I take a breath before answering a question. I give myself time to think. I use simple words when I am unsure. I ask people to repeat things when necessary. I say, "Could you say that again, please?" I also say, "Could you speak a little slower?" I am not afraid to ask for clarification. I try to stay calm during conversations. I focus on the message, not perfection. I learn something from every speaking mistake. I become more confident through regular practice. I prepare my things before going to bed. I set my alarm for the next morning. I put away anything I do not need. I turn off the lights before sleeping. I feel proud when I practice every day. I like to plan my day before it becomes too busy. I usually write down 3 important things I need to finish. I try not to worry about everything at the same time. I focus on what I can do right now. I feel more organized when I have a simple plan. I sometimes change my schedule when something unexpected happens. I remind myself that plans do not always go perfectly. I try to stay flexible when my day changes. I solve one problem before moving to the next. I feel calmer when I take things step by step. I often check my email in the morning. I read the most important messages first. I reply when I have enough information. I ask for more details when something is not clear. I try to keep my messages short and polite. I double-check important information before sending it. I sometimes make a phone call instead of writing a long message. I introduce myself clearly when someone answers. I explain the reason for my call. I thank the person before ending the conversation. I enjoy talking with people when the conversation feels natural. I usually start with a simple question. I might ask, "How has your day been?" I listen to the answer before asking another question. I try to show interest in what the other person says. I sometimes share a similar experience. I avoid talking only about myself. I ask follow-up questions when I want to know more. I smile when I meet someone for the first time. I try to make people feel comfortable around me. I sometimes meet a friend for coffee after work. I usually arrive a few minutes before we meet. I choose a quiet table when possible. I order something simple from the menu. I might say, "I'll have a coffee, please." I ask for water if I am thirsty. I wait until my friend is ready before we order food. I enjoy catching up on what has been happening. I tell my friend about something interesting from my week. I ask what they have been doing lately. On weekends, I usually have more time for myself. I do not like waking up too early on Saturday. I sometimes stay in bed for a few extra minutes. I make a slower breakfast than I do during the week. I enjoy drinking coffee without looking at the clock. I might clean my apartment in the morning. I put my clothes away and organize my room. I take out the trash when the bag is full. I open a window to let fresh air inside. I feel better when my home is clean and comfortable. I sometimes go shopping on the weekend. I make a list before leaving home. I try to buy only what I really need. I look for fresh vegetables and fruit. I check the expiration date before buying food. I compare different brands when the prices are different. I sometimes choose the cheaper option if the quality is similar. I ask an employee when I cannot find an item. I say, "Excuse me, where can I find the rice?" I always thank them for their help. When I buy clothes, I usually try them on first. I check whether the size feels comfortable. I look at myself in the mirror before deciding. I sometimes ask, "Do you have this in a larger size?" I might also ask, whether another color is available. I do not buy something just because it is on sale. I think about whether I will really use it. I keep the receipt in case I need to return something. I check the return policy before buying expensive items. I try to make careful decisions when I spend money. Traveling around the city can sometimes be stressful. I usually check the route before I leave. I make sure I know which bus or train to take. I leave early when I have an important appointment. I do not like rushing when I can avoid it. I ask for directions when I get confused. I might say, "Excuse me, is this the right way to the station?" I listen carefully to the directions. I repeat important information to make sure I understood. I thank the person and continue on my way. Sometimes the bus arrives later than expected. I try to be patient when there is a delay. I check my phone to see if there is an update. I send a message if I know I will be late. I might say, "I'm sorry, but my bus is running late." I give an estimated arrival time when I can. I do not want people to wait without knowing what happened. I appreciate it when others keep me informed too. Clear communication can prevent unnecessary stress. I try to communicate early when my plans change. When I arrive somewhere new, I take a moment to look around. I read signs carefully before asking for help. I try to understand where I need to go. I keep important information on my phone. I save addresses before leaving home. I make sure my phone battery is charged. I sometimes carry a charger in my bag. I keep a little cash with me for emergencies. I try to prepare for small problems before they happen. Good preparation helps me feel more confident. I also practice English when I am outside. I read signs, menus, and advertisements in English. I quietly repeat useful phrases that I notice. I describe things around me using simple sentences. I might say, "The street is busy this afternoon." I might say, "That restaurant looks crowded today." I use everyday moments as speaking practice. I do not wait for a classroom to practice English. I know that regular practice makes speaking easier. I am becoming a stronger speaker every day. I try to speak English a little every day. I know that regular practice is more useful than occasional long practice. I sometimes talk to myself while doing simple tasks. I describe what I am doing in English. I might say, "I'm making breakfast right now." I might say, "I need to leave in 10 minutes." I use simple sentences before trying longer ones. I focus on speaking clearly instead of speaking quickly. I repeat difficult sentences until they feel easier. I notice that my confidence grows with practice. I sometimes practice English while walking. I describe the people and places around me. I might say, "A man is waiting at the bus stop." I might say, "The weather feels cooler today." I try to notice small details in my surroundings. I turn those details into complete English sentences. I do not worry if the sentences are simple. Simple English can still communicate clear ideas. I gradually add more details as I improve. This makes my speaking practice feel natural. I like learning expressions that I can use in real conversations. I practice saying, "That sounds like a good idea." I practice saying, "I'm not sure about that yet." I practice saying, "Let me think about it for a moment." I practice saying, "That makes sense to me." I practice saying, "I completely understand what you mean." These expressions help conversations flow more smoothly. They also give me time to organize my thoughts. I try to use them when I speak with other people. The more I use them, the more natural they become. Sometimes I need to disagree politely. I do not want to sound rude or unfriendly. I might say, "I see your point, but I think differently." I might say, "I understand what you mean, but I'm not completely convinced." I can also say, "That may be true, But there is another way to look at it. I keep my voice calm when discussing different opinions. I listen carefully before responding. I try to understand the other person's point of view. I do not need to win every conversation. Respectful communication is more important than proving I am right. When someone gives me advice, I listen before reacting. I might say, "Thanks, I'll think about that." I can also say, "That's helpful, I appreciate it." Sometimes I agree with the advice immediately. Other times, I need more time to decide. I ask questions if I need more information. I might ask, "What would you do in my situation?" I might ask, "Why do you think that would work?" Good questions help me understand other perspectives. I make my own decision after considering the advice. I sometimes make mistakes when I speak. I may use the wrong word or pronounce something incorrectly. I try not to become embarrassed by small mistakes. I correct myself and continue speaking. I might say, "Sorry, that's not what I meant." I can also say, "Let me say that another way." These phrases help me recover naturally. Native speakers also correct themselves during conversations. Communication does not have to be perfect to be successful. The important thing is to keep the conversation moving. When I do not know a word, I try to explain the idea differently. I do not always need to stop the conversation. I can describe the object or situation using words I already know. I might say, "It's the thing you use to open a bottle." I might say, "It's a place where you go to have your car repaired." This skill helps me communicate even with limited vocabulary. I become more flexible when I practice explaining things. I learn that there is usually more than one way to express an idea. I feel less nervous when I cannot remember a specific word. I keep talking instead of becoming silent. I often talk about my plans with friends. I might say, "I'm planning to visit my family this weekend." I might say, "I'm thinking about taking a short trip next month." I sometimes change my plans at the last minute. I let people know when something changes. I might say, "Something came up, so I need to reschedule." I can also say, "Would another day work better for you?" I try to be considerate of other people's time. I confirm important plans before leaving home. Clear plans make everything easier. I also like talking about past experiences. I might say, "I went to Chicago last summer." I might say, "I had a great time visiting the city." I describe what happened in a simple and logical order. I explain where I went and what I did. I sometimes add how I felt about the experience. I might say, "The trip was tiring, but it was worth it." I might say, "I was nervous at first, but everything went well." Talking about past experiences helps me practice storytelling. I try to make my stories clear without adding unnecessary details. Sometimes people ask about my future goals. I take a moment before answering. I might say, "I want to improve my communication skills this year." I might say, "I hope to travel more in the future." I might say, "I'm working toward a better balance between work and personal life." I know that goals can change over time. I try to make realistic plans instead of expecting immediate results. I break large goals into smaller steps. I celebrate progress even when it feels small. Consistent effort usually matters more than quick results. When I feel stressed, I try to slow down. I remind myself that I do not have to solve everything immediately. I take a short break when my mind feels tired. I go outside if I have been indoors for too long. I sometimes take a short walk around the neighborhood. I pay attention to my breathing while I walk. I return to my work when I feel more focused. I try to notice what causes unnecessary stress. I change small habits when they are making my day harder. Taking care of myself helps me communicate more calmly. I have learned that confidence does not appear overnight. It grows through repeated experience. Every conversation teaches me something. Every mistake gives me a chance to improve. Every sentence I repeat makes English more familiar. I do not compare my progress with someone else's progress. I focus on what I can do better than before. I notice small improvements in my listening and speaking. I trust that steady practice will continue to help me. I am becoming more comfortable using English in everyday life. I try to stay positive when plans change. I remind myself that problems can be solved. I take a moment before making important decisions. I think carefully about the possible results. I ask for advice when I need it. I do not rush when the choice is important. I trust myself to make reasonable decisions. I learn from choices that do not work well. I change my approach when necessary. I keep moving forward after a setback. Sometimes I have to deal with unexpected problems. My phone might stop working suddenly. I might miss the bus in the morning. I might forget something important at home. I try not to panic when this happens. I first think about what I can control. I look for the simplest possible solution. I ask someone for help when necessary. I stay polite even when I feel frustrated. Staying calm usually helps me think more clearly. If I miss the bus, I check the next arrival time. I send a message if I will be late. I explain the situation honestly and briefly. I might say, I'm running a little behind. I might say, I should be there in about 15 minutes. I avoid making excuses that are too complicated. I simply explain what happened. I apologize if my delay affects someone else. I thank them for being patient. I try to arrive earlier the next time. When I visit a restaurant, I look at the menu first. I ask questions if I do not understand something. I might say, "What do you recommend?" I might ask, "Does this dish contain nuts?" I order when I am ready. I speak clearly so the server can understand me. I might say, "I'd like the chicken sandwich, please." I ask for the check when I am finished. I thank the server before leaving. I try to be polite throughout the meal. When I travel, I prepare important documents in advance. I check my departure time the night before. I arrive early so I do not feel rushed. I keep my identification somewhere easy to reach. I ask airport staff for help when necessary. I might say, "Which gate should I go to?" I listen carefully to announcements. I check the information on the screen. I keep my belongings close to me. I stay aware of the time while I wait. I enjoy discovering new places when I travel. I like walking around unfamiliar neighborhoods. I sometimes ask local people for recommendations. I might say, "Is there a good coffee shop nearby?" I might ask, "What is the best way to get downtown?" I try new food when I have the chance. I take photos of places I want to remember. I respect local rules and customs. I keep an open mind about new experiences. Traveling teaches me to become more independent. At work, I sometimes need to explain my ideas. I try to organize my thoughts before speaking. I begin with the most important point. I give an example when it helps. I keep my explanation clear and focused. I ask whether anyone has questions. I listen carefully to other opinions. I accept useful feedback without taking it personally. I make changes when the feedback makes sense. Good communication helps people work together. Sometimes I have to ask for more time. I might say, "Could I have until tomorrow?" I explain why I need extra time. I avoid promising something I cannot finish. I try to be realistic about my schedule. I let people know early if there is a problem. I take responsibility for my work. I do my best to meet important deadlines. I ask for support before the situation becomes serious. Being honest makes difficult conversations easier. Friendships also require good communication. I try to stay in touch with people I care about. I send a message when I have not talked to someone for a while. I might say, "How have you been lately?" I remember important things my friends tell me. I listen when someone needs to talk. I offer help when I can. I respect people when they need space. I apologize when I realize I was wrong. Strong relationships grow through small acts of kindness. I also practice expressing my feelings clearly. I might say, "I'm a little worried about tomorrow." I might say, "I'm really excited about this opportunity." I can say, "I'm disappointed, but I understand." I can say, "I'm glad everything worked out." I try not to hide every emotion. I choose respectful words when I am upset. I explain what I need instead of expecting people to guess. I listen when others explain their feelings. Honest communication can prevent many misunderstandings. When someone misunderstands me, I stay patient. I might say, "Let me explain what I mean." I try another sentence if the first one is unclear. I use simpler words when necessary. I check whether the other person understood me. I might ask, "Does that make sense?" I do not feel embarrassed about repeating myself. Clear communication sometimes takes more than one attempt. I become better at explaining things through practice. I feel more confident each time I try. I know that learning English takes time. I do not expect instant results. I focus on regular practice instead. I repeat useful sentences out loud. I pay attention to pronunciation and rhythm. I use new expressions in my own conversations. I review phrases that I often forget. I notice my progress from week to week. I keep practicing because every sentence makes me stronger. Excellent work. You have now practiced 400 useful English sentences, and if you repeated them out loud with me, you have just given your speaking muscles a powerful workout. Take a moment and notice how you feel now. Some sentences may have felt very easy, while others may have required more concentration. That is completely normal. The important thing is that you listened, you repeated, and you kept speaking. Remember that you do not need to master every sentence after hearing it only once. Real improvement comes through repetition. Come back to this practice again. And notice which sentences become easier the second time. Then return again a few days later, and see how much more naturally the words come out. You can also choose some of your favorite sentences from today and use them in your daily life. Say them while you are getting ready in the morning, while walking, while driving, while cooking, or whenever you have a few quiet minutes. Try to remember this simple practice method. Listen first, repeat clearly, copy the rhythm, and then say the sentence again without looking at the words if you can. You can also personalize the sentences. If you practiced, "I usually take the bus to work," but you drive to work, change it and say, "I usually drive to work." If you practiced, "I went to Chicago last summer," choose a place that is true for you and create your own sentence. This is how shadowing becomes more than repetition. You begin with my sentence, and then you turn it into your English. Do not worry if you still hesitate sometimes. Hesitation becomes shorter when you practice regularly. Do not worry if your pronunciation is not perfect. Pronunciation improves when your ears and mouth work together again and again. And most importantly, do not keep your English only inside your head. Speak it, use it, repeat it, make mistakes with it, correct yourself, and keep going. The goal is not to sound perfect after one lesson. The goal is to become a little more comfortable every time you practice. If you practiced all 400 sentences today, you should feel proud of yourself. You stayed focused through a long speaking session, and that kind of consistent practice can make a real difference over time. Tomorrow, even 10 or 15 minutes of speaking practice can help you continue building the habit. You can repeat part of this lesson. Practice sentences you found difficult, or create your own sentences using the patterns you learned today. Keep listening to natural English. Keep repeating complete sentences, and keep giving your mouth opportunities to speak. Little by little, you may notice that you translate less. You may answer questions faster. You may remember expressions more easily, and conversations may begin to feel less stressful. That is what we are working toward. Not perfect English, but comfortable, useful, confident English that you can actually use in your everyday life. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I'm Evelyn, and I hope you will continue building your English one sentence, one conversation, and one day at a time. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Before you finish today, let's use a few more minutes to strengthen what you have already practiced. You have repeated many useful patterns. But now I want you to focus on speaking with less hesitation. Do not try to remember every sentence perfectly. Instead, listen to the idea, understand it, and allow your voice to follow naturally. Think about your morning today. What time did you wake up? What did you do first? Maybe you got out of bed, washed your face, made breakfast, checked your phone, and prepared for the day. Say your routine out loud in simple English. You can begin slowly. I woke up at 7 this morning. I washed my face. I made some coffee. And then I got ready for the day. Keep your sentences simple and clear. Now think about what you usually do during the week. Maybe you work, study, take care of your family, or manage different responsibilities at home. Try describing a normal weekday. You might say, I usually start my day early. I have a busy morning, and I try to finish my important tasks before lunch. Listen to how naturally those ideas connect. Now change the time and talk about yesterday. Yesterday is finished, so allow your English to move into the past. Think about where you went, who you talked to, what you ate, and how you felt. You could say, yesterday was a busy day. I went to work in the morning, had lunch with a coworker, and came home around 6. Do not worry about creating an exciting story. Ordinary life is excellent speaking practice. Now think about tomorrow. What are you planning to do? You might have work, an appointment, shopping, exercise, or time with family. Say your plans naturally. Tomorrow, I'm going to finish some work in the morning. Then I'm going to meet a friend in the afternoon. Notice that you are now moving between the past, present, and future. This type of practice is very useful because real conversations do not stay in only one tense. Someone may ask what you normally do, then ask what you did yesterday, and then ask what you are going to do tomorrow. Your goal is to become comfortable moving between these ideas without stopping for a long time. Now imagine that someone asks, "How was your day?" Do not answer with only, "Good." Give a little more information. You might say, "It was pretty good. I was busy in the morning, but the afternoon was much quieter." Or you could say, "It was a long day, but I finished everything I needed to do." Now imagine someone asks, "What have you been doing lately?" Take your time and give a natural answer. You could say, "I've been working a lot lately, but I'm also trying to make more time for exercise." You could also say, "I've been practicing my English every day, and I'm starting to feel more comfortable speaking." Notice the difference between knowing an expression and being able to use it immediately. That is why active speaking matters. When you repeatedly use phrases such as "divipti," "I've been working on," "I'm thinking about," "I'm planning to," and "I'm trying to," these patterns slowly become part of your natural speaking vocabulary. Let's practice connecting ideas more smoothly. Instead of saying, "I was tired, I went home, I ate dinner, I slept," try connecting the thoughts. You could say, "I was tired after work, so I went home, had dinner, and went to bed early." The meaning is almost the same, but the second version sounds smoother and more natural. Try another one. Instead of saying, "The store was crowded, I needed groceries, I stayed," say, "The store was crowded, but I needed groceries, so I stayed and finished my shopping." Words such as but, so, because, although, and then can help your English flow from one idea to another. Now imagine that you do not understand someone. You do not need to become nervous. Use one of the communication strategies you practiced earlier. Say, "Sorry, could you say that again?" Or, "I didn't quite catch that. Could you speak a little slower?" These phrases are not signs of weak English. They are practical tools for successful communication. Imagine that you know the general idea you want to express, but you cannot remember one word. Keep speaking. Describe the word, explain its purpose. Or use a simpler expression. If you forget the word umbrella, for example, you might say, "It's the thing you use when it rains." The conversation can continue, and sometimes the other person will naturally give you the word you were looking for. This is an important speaking skill. Because fluent communication does not mean remembering every word immediately. It means knowing how to continue communicating even when your English is not perfect. Now pay attention to your speaking speed. Many learners believe that speaking quickly means speaking fluently. But that is not always true. A calm speaker who uses clear sentences can sound much more confident than someone who speaks too quickly and becomes difficult to understand. So give yourself permission to slow down, use natural pauses, breathe between ideas, and focus on clear pronunciation. You can become faster later, but first, build control. Think about a topic you know very well, maybe your job, your family, your neighborhood, your favorite food, your weekend routine, or a hobby. Speak about that topic for 30 seconds in English. Do not prepare every sentence first. Just begin. If you make a mistake, continue. If you forget a word, explain it another way. If you need a moment to think, use a natural phrase such as, "Let me think," or "That's a good question." These small expressions give you time, while keeping the conversation alive. Now try speaking about the same topic again, but this time add more detail. If you first said, "I like cooking," expand it. You could say, "I like cooking because it helps me relax. I usually cook simple meals during the week. But on weekends, I sometimes try something new." That is how you grow from short answers into real conversation. You do not need complicated vocabulary to sound natural. You need clear ideas, useful sentence patterns, and enough practice to say them comfortably. As you continue learning, try to collect phrases instead of only individual words. Instead of memorizing only decision, practice, make a decision, instead of learning only attention, practice, pay attention, instead of learning only progress, practice, make progress. Learning words inside useful patterns makes them easier to use when you actually speak. And when you hear a useful expression in a movie, podcast, conversation, or lesson, repeat it aloud. Do not simply think, "I understand that." Train yourself to say it. Understanding is the beginning. Speaking is the training. And repetition is what helps the language stay with you. So after today's 400 sentences, choose 10 or 20 expressions that felt especially useful. Practice them again tomorrow. Then use some of them in your own examples. Change the people, change the places, change the times, change the details, but keep the useful sentence pattern. That small habit can turn one practice sentence into many new sentences that belong to your real life. Keep your English active, keep your practice practical, and remember that every time you speak out loud, you are teaching your brain that English is something you use, not only something you study. Now let's make your speaking practice even more useful by training the kinds of responses you may need in real conversations. Sometimes English feels difficult, not because the vocabulary is hard, but because you need to respond quickly. So in this practice, focus on giving natural answers without trying to create a perfect sentence. Imagine someone asks you, "What do you usually do after work?" You might answer, "I usually go home and relax for a while. Then I make dinner and take care of a few things around the house." Listen again. I usually go home and relax for a while. Then I make dinner and take care of a few things around the house. Now think about your own routine and say your answer in your own words. Imagine someone asks, "Do you have any plans for the weekend?" You could say, "I don't have anything special planned yet, but I might meet some friends or spend some time with my family." Say it slowly. "I don't have anything special planned yet, but I might meet some friends or spend some time with my family." Notice how the answer gives enough information to continue the conversation. Now imagine someone asks, "What kind of food do you enjoy?" You might say, "I like simple homemade food, but I also enjoy trying new restaurants from time to time." Repeat it. "I like simple homemade food, but I also enjoy trying new restaurants from time to time." Then create your own answer using food you really enjoy. Someone may ask, "How do you usually get to work?" You can answer, "I usually drive, but sometimes I take the bus when traffic is especially bad." Or you might say, "I usually take the train because it is faster and more convenient." Practice giving one clear reason after your answer, because reasons make conversations more interesting. Now imagine you are talking about your neighborhood. You might say, "I live in a fairly quiet neighborhood, and there are several stores and restaurants within walking distance." Repeat that idea slowly. "I live in a fairly quiet neighborhood, and there are several stores and restaurants within walking distance." If that does not describe your neighborhood, change the sentence so it becomes true for you. You might say, "My neighborhood is usually busy during the day, but it becomes much quieter in the evening." Or, "I live a little far from downtown, so I usually need to drive when I go somewhere." The goal is not to copy every detail exactly. The goal is to learn the structure and use it to express your own life. Now think about work or study. If someone asks, "What are you working on these days?" You might say, "I'm working on a few different projects right now, and one of them is taking most of my time." Repeat, "I'm working on a few different projects right now, and one of them is taking most of my time." If you are studying, you could say, "I'm focusing on improving my speaking skills right now because I want to feel more confident in conversations." Say it again. "I'm focusing on improving my speaking skills right now because I want to feel more confident in conversations." Now let's practice talking about something difficult. Imagine someone asks, "What has been challenging for you lately?" You might answer, "Managing my time has been a little difficult lately." Because I have several things to do every day. Repeat it slowly. Managing my time has been a little difficult lately because I have several things to do every day. You can also say, I've been trying to stay consistent with my routine, but some days are busier than others. Listen to that natural contrast. I've been trying to stay consistent with my routine, but some days are busier than others. When you speak at the B1 or B2 level, you do not always need more complicated words. Often, what makes your speaking stronger is the ability to explain an idea, give a reason, add an example, or compare two situations. For example, instead of saying, my job is busy, you can say, my job can be quite busy during the week, especially when we have several deadlines at the same time. That extra detail makes your answer sound more complete. Instead of saying, I like weekends, you can say, I enjoy weekends because I finally have time to slow down, catch up on things at home, and spend time with people I care about. Repeat it naturally, and notice how one idea develops into another. Now practice giving opinions. You might say, I think working from home can be convenient, but it also requires a lot of self-discipline. Repeat, I think working from home can be convenient, but it also requires a lot of self-discipline. Here is another opinion. In my opinion, learning a language becomes easier when you use it in your daily life. Again, in my opinion, learning a language becomes easier when you use it in your daily life. You can also make your opinion softer. Instead of saying, that is wrong, you can say, I'm not sure I completely agree with that. Repeat, I'm not sure I completely agree with that. This kind of language is very useful when you want to disagree politely. Now imagine you need to make a suggestion. You could say, why don't we leave a little earlier so we don't have to rush? Repeat, why don't we leave a little earlier so we don't have to rush? You could also say, maybe we should check the schedule before we make a decision. Again, maybe we should check the schedule before we make a decision. If you want to accept a suggestion, say, that sounds good to me. Let's do that. If you are unsure, say, that could work, but let me check my schedule first. If you want a different option, say, I like the idea, but would tomorrow work better? These small responses help you participate actively in conversations, instead of only answering yes or no. Now let's practice describing problems clearly. Imagine you ordered something online, but the wrong item arrived. You might say, I received my order this morning, but unfortunately, it is not the item I ordered. Repeat, I received my order this morning, but unfortunately, it is not the item I ordered. Then explain what you want. I'd like to return this item and receive the correct one, please. Again, I'd like to return this item and receive the correct one, please. Imagine there is a problem at a restaurant. You might say, excuse me, I think there may have been a mistake with my order. Repeat, excuse me, I think there may have been a mistake with my order. Then add, I ordered the grilled chicken, but I received the pasta. Notice how calm and specific language makes the problem easier to understand. Now imagine you need directions. You could ask, excuse me, could you tell me how to get to the nearest subway station? Repeat slowly. Excuse me, could you tell me how to get to the nearest subway station? If the directions are difficult, say, sorry, could you repeat the last part? Or, so I go straight, then turn left at the light. Is that right? Repeating the information back is a useful way to check your understanding. Now think about a recent experience. Maybe you went somewhere interesting, met someone, tried a new restaurant, or simply had a busy day. Practice telling the story in 3 steps. what happened first, what happened next, and how it ended. You might say, last weekend I met a friend downtown. We had lunch at a new restaurant, and afterward, we walked around for a while and talked. Then add your story again, but try to speak a little more smoothly this time. Do not rush. Let the words connect. Keep your voice relaxed and focus on the meaning. One of the best ways to build fluency is to tell the same short story more than once. The first time, you may stop often. The second time, you may find the words faster. The third time, your sentence structure may feel much more natural. This is exactly what repetition does. It reduces the amount of thinking you need for familiar ideas. So choose one topic from your own life. Your morning, your workday, your weekend, a trip, a meal, a problem you solved, or a conversation you remember. Speak about it once, then speak about it again, and try to make the second version clearer and smoother. If you cannot remember a perfect word, use another word. If you make a grammar mistake, keep going. If you need to correct yourself naturally and continue. This is real speaking practice, not perfect speaking, real speaking. And every time you practice this way, you make it easier for your brain to find English when you need it. Now let's finish today's practice by bringing everything together: listening, repeating, thinking, and speaking with your own ideas. At this stage, I want you to focus less on individual words and more on complete thoughts. When you speak in real life, you usually need to connect several ideas together, so let's practice doing that calmly and naturally. Imagine someone asks you, "How has your week been?" You could answer, "It has been pretty busy so far, but I've managed to finish most of the things I needed to do." Repeat it slowly. "It has been pretty busy so far, but I've managed to finish most of the things I needed to do." Now change the details so the answer becomes true for your own week. You might say, "My week has been fairly quiet, so I've had more time to relax and take care of things at home." Or, "It has been a challenging week, but I'm trying to stay positive and take things one day at a time." Notice how each answer contains more than one idea. You describe the situation, and then you add a reaction, result, or extra detail. This is one of the easiest ways to make your English sound more natural. Now imagine someone asks, "What are you looking forward to?" You might say, "I'm looking forward to the weekend because I haven't had much time to relax lately." Repeat, "I'm looking forward to the weekend because I haven't had much time to relax lately." You could also say, "I'm looking forward to visiting my family next month. We haven't seen each other for a while, so it will be nice to spend some time together." Now think about something you are trying to improve. You might say, "I'm trying to manage my time better because I sometimes leave important things until the last minute." Repeat it. "I'm trying to manage my time better because I sometimes leave important things until the last minute." Or say, "I'm trying to become more confident when I speak English, so I practice complete sentences out loud every day." That is a useful pattern. "I'm trying to because," or "I'm trying to so." These patterns allow you to explain both your goal and your reason. Now let's practice talking about change. Think about something that is different in your life compared with a year ago. You might say, "A year ago, I did not practice English very often, but now I try to use it every day." Repeat, "A year ago, I did not practice English very often, but now I try to use it every day." You might say, "I used to stay up very late, but recently, I've been trying to go to bed earlier." Or, I used to feel nervous whenever I had to speak English, but now I'm becoming more comfortable with it. These sentences are useful because they help you compare your past with your present, and they give you a natural way to talk about progress. Now imagine someone asks you to describe a good day. You could say, "For me, a good day starts with a calm morning. I get my important work done, spend some time outside, and finish the day feeling relaxed." Now describe a difficult day. You might say, "A difficult day is usually one when everything feels rushed. I have too many things to do, and unexpected problems keep appearing." Now describe what helps you on those difficult days. When I feel overwhelmed, I try to stop for a moment, decide what is most important, and focus on one thing at a time. Repeat that slowly. When I feel overwhelmed, I try to stop for a moment, decide what is most important, and focus on one thing at a time. This type of sentence is useful far beyond English practice because it teaches you how to explain situations, emotions, and solutions clearly. Now let's practice one short conversation in your imagination. Someone says, "You seem tired today. Is everything okay?" You could answer, "Yes, I'm okay. I just didn't sleep very well last night, so I'm feeling a little tired." Then the person says, "Do you have a busy day?" You answer, "A little, but I've already finished the hardest part of my work, so hopefully the rest of the day will be easier." Notice how each answer gives enough information for the conversation to continue. You are not giving one-word answers, but you are also not trying to give a long speech. Natural conversation usually lives somewhere in the middle. Now imagine another situation. A friend asks, "Would you like to go out for dinner tonight?" You might say, "I'd like to, but I already have plans tonight. How about tomorrow instead?" Your friend says, "Tomorrow works for me. What time should we meet?" You answer, "Would 7 o'clock work for you? I should be free by then." Then your friend says, "Perfect. Do you have a place in mind?" You reply, "There's a small restaurant downtown that I've been wanting to try. We could go there if you're interested." These are simple sentences, but together they create a complete real-life conversation. Now practice another everyday situation. Imagine you are at work and someone asks, "Do you have a minute?" You say, "Sure. What do you need?" The person says, "Could you take a look at this when you have time?" You answer, "Of course. I'm finishing something right now, but I can look at it in about 20 minutes. Then they say, "That's fine. There's no rush." You respond, "Great. I'll come find you when I'm done." Again, notice the useful language, "when you have time." "I'm finishing something right now. There's no rush." And "I'll come find you when I'm done." These small phrases appear again and again in everyday English. Now let's practice expressing uncertainty, because you will not always know the answer immediately. You can say, "I'm not completely sure, but I think the meeting starts at 10. You can say, "I haven't decided yet. I'm still thinking about it." You can say, "I might go, but it depends on how much work I finish." You can say, "As far as I know, everything is still going according to plan." You can say, "I could be wrong, but I remember hearing something about that." Using phrases like these helps you communicate accurately, without pretending to be certain when you are not. Now practice responding when someone tells you good news. You might say, "That's wonderful." "I'm really happy for you." Or, "That sounds exciting. When does it happen?" Or, "Congratulations. You must be really pleased." Now imagine someone shares disappointing news. You could say, "I'm sorry to hear that. I hope things get better soon. Or, that's disappointing, especially after all the work you put into it. Or, I can understand why you feel frustrated. Learning how to respond to other people's emotions is an important part of natural conversation, because communication is not only about exchanging information, it is also about showing that you are listening. Now think about the way you speak when you are nervous. Maybe you try to speak too quickly. Maybe you stop after every few words. Maybe you worry so much about mistakes that you lose your main idea. The next time that happens, remember this simple strategy. Slow down, choose the main idea, and say the simplest, clear sentence you can. If someone asks, "Why did you decide to change jobs?" you do not need to create a perfect advanced answer immediately. You can begin, "I wanted a new challenge, and I also wanted more opportunities to grow." Then, if you want, you can add more detail. "My previous job taught me a lot, but after a few years, I felt ready to try something different." One clear idea can become two, and two can become a complete answer. Now choose one topic from your own life and speak about it for 1 full minute. You can talk about your routine, your family, your work, a recent trip, something you are learning, a goal, a problem, or a decision you recently made. Begin with a simple opening sentence. Then add a reason, add an example, explain how you feel, and finish the idea clearly. If you stop, begin again. If you forget a word, explain it another way. If you make a mistake, correct it if you can, and continue. Try not to restart your whole answer because of one small error. Real communication keeps moving. Now repeat the same 1 minute talk. But this time, try to make it smoother. You already know the ideas, so your brain can spend less energy deciding what to say and more energy focusing on how you say it. This second attempt may feel easier. Your pauses may become shorter. Your sentences may connect more naturally, and your pronunciation may feel more controlled. That is why repeating your own speaking is such a useful exercise. You are not memorizing a speech. You are teaching familiar ideas to come out more easily. Now take one final moment to notice what you have practiced today. You have worked with everyday routines, shopping, transportation, work, restaurants, travel, friendships, emotions, plans, past experiences, future goals, problems, opinions, suggestions, polite disagreement, clarification, and natural conversation responses. More importantly, you have trained yourself to keep speaking even when every word is not perfect. That habit matters. Your English does not become fluent because you wait until every sentence feels easy. It becomes more fluent because you keep using the language while some parts still feel difficult. So when you practice again, do not measure your progress only by how many new words you know. Notice whether you answer a little faster. Notice whether common expressions come to you more easily. Notice whether you can speak for longer without translating every sentence. Notice whether you recover more calmly after a mistake. Notice whether you can express the same idea in another way when you forget a word. Those are real signs of progress. Keep returning to the sentences that challenge you. Repeat them slowly first, then at a more natural speed, and finally, use the same pattern to create a sentence about your own life. Listen, repeat, change the sentence, use it again, and allow each practice session to make English feel a little more familiar. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. You stayed with this lesson. You listened carefully. You repeated hundreds of useful sentences. And most importantly, you gave yourself real speaking practice. Remember, you do not need perfect English to communicate well. You need regular practice, useful sentence patterns, and the confidence to keep speaking even when you make small mistakes. Every time you repeat a sentence out loud, every time you try to express your own idea, and every time you continue speaking instead of stopping, you are building stronger English. If some sentences felt difficult today, come back and practice them again. The second time will often feel easier, and the third time may feel even more natural. Repetition helps your ears, your brain, and your mouth work together more smoothly. Keep practicing a little every day, even if you only have 10 or 15 minutes. Listen to natural English, repeat complete sentences, speak about your daily life, and use the expressions you learned in real conversations whenever you can. If you enjoyed today's practice, support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with another English learner who wants to improve their speaking. And in the comments, tell me one sentence from today's lesson that you want to use in your real life. I'm Evelyn, and I'm very happy you practiced with me today. Keep listening, keep repeating, keep speaking, and keep believing in your progress. Your English becomes stronger every time you use it. Take care, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next lesson.